DW Africa Link.
Here in Uganda, in theory, we have multi-party political system, but in practical terms, we don't have it. This is sham elections as they were, as they have been since we went into multi-party political system. The moment you close civic space, the moment you shut down the mouth of citizens, the moment the government, like the military, or rules over the electoral commission, what do you expect out of the election? You expect the counting or even the voting and the counting to be free and fair and transparent when the citizens are told to go away instead of playing their part? What is the part of a citizen in elections?
You heard Dr. Miriam Matemba speaking on DW's Under the Baobab show. Now, she is Uganda's first ever Minister of Ethics and Integrity between 1988 to 2003, under President Yoweri Museveni's first term. She was also instrumental in helping draft the country's constitution.
This government, which has been in power for almost 40 years, is so scared. I don't know why it is so scared of opposition. And one wonders why. If the government doesn't want opposition, then why does it say that we have a multi-party democratic dispensation?
Her criticism is one of the many against the 2026 presidential and parliamentary election, which has been saddled with internet shutdowns, late starts, and fears of vote rigging. Now, beyond these concerns, how exactly did election day unfold in Uganda?
Up to now, it is almost a quarter past 8.
All that was promised that it will be a swift and flow stuff. It's not swift, it's not flow.
We wanted to vote early because we see a lot of this deployment. We are not sure of our safety. We don't know what's going on.
We are Ugandans. We have come to vote, and after voting, go back home and go on your TV and see what happens. Whatever they tell us, that's what we shall do.
We have more on this shortly. Stay tuned. I am Ajua Tinkrama Domina, and you're welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
Uganda's 2026 presidential and parliamentary elections started on a shaky footing. Some centers started late, distribution of voting materials delayed in other centers amid heavy security deployment, low voter turnout, and a nationwide internet shutdown. The delays have been blamed on failures of biometric identification kits, some of which have been linked to the network outage, as well as a lack of equipment in some places. How was the feeling among Ugandans in the early hours of the day when voting started? My colleague Isaac Mugabe was on the ground.
Today, the nation is at crossroads as millions of Ugandans headed to the polls to elect the new leaders. President Yoweri Museveni is seeking a 7th term, while opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, the main contender who's popularly known as Bobi Wine, has emerged as a powerful challenger, especially among the youth. We are coming to you from the polling station where Bobi Wine himself cast his vote. The atmosphere here is electric. Supporters have gathered in large numbers, chanting slogans, waving party colors, and singing songs of change. I mean, those are supporters of Bobi Wine. They want a new Uganda, they say. Security forces are stationed nearby, their presence a reminder of the tension surrounding this election. Despite the internet blackout ordered nationwide, people are finding ways to connect and coordinate, determined to make their voices heard. Earlier today, I spoke with some voters here at the polling station. Many expressed both hope and anxiety. Security forces are everywhere. I mean, metered trucks lined up the streets and armed personnel are stationed around the polling area, and their presence is impossible to ignore and has created unease among many voters. Some supporters say they feel intimidated, while others insist they won't be deterred. The government argues that these deployments are necessary to maintain order, but opposition leaders accuse authorities of using intimidation tactics to suppress turnout. I've seen soldiers monitoring the crowd closely, and there are checkpoints leading up to the polling station. The atmosphere is also tense with supporters trying to keep the energy high. Needless to say, again, the internet shutdown has impacted businesses, has impacted our work as reporters. I mean, it's frustrations after frustrations. So let's listen from young voters who I spoke to about their hopes for the future, starting with the frustrations of the day.
I came here at 7 exactly, but nothing is taking place. No one is voting, and all people are stranded. Others want even to go, but we don't know what next. No one is briefing us about what's taking place and what's next.
I'm Margaret Nabukera, and I live in Magere. This is where I'm supposed to vote from, but I've been from here since morning, as it was directed to us. But nothing is going on. The machines are down, and no one is telling us what is happening. So we are just here. Now 2 hours are wasted. We are not voting, yet we had other things to do. I'm very committed to stay because I need to cast my vote as a citizen, but I don't know for how long.
Yes, we came here early, but the systems were down, so that delayed us a bit. But eventually we are voted. We did the manual voting, and yes, I'm happy to be done.
We have to decide who is supposed to lead us for the next 5 years. I think it is every citizen's responsibility to vote. There are things to learn. So the managers of the electoral process must learn from this, such that maybe next time, or some few hours from now, it is a different thing.
Like I said, the international community is watching closely, and one can only wait and see what happens after polls close in just an hour from now.
You had a report by my colleague Isaac Mugabe from Kampala. Well, he joins us with some more updates on the elections. Isaac, thank you so much for making time to join us. How is the voting day unfolding?
Well, voting day is a mix of everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But perhaps I'll start with the ugly. Since morning, polls are supposed to have opened at 7 a.m. East African time, but nothing was happening at any polling stations, especially in the capital, Kampala, where I am. And for me, it seemed like, according to the people I spoke to, the electoral officials were more confused than the voters themselves who had turned up and started queuing. They had to use biometric machines, which didn't have connection, as you might well know that the internet was completely shut down. We shall talk about that a little later. But they didn't have answers to concerns the voters were asking them, like, what's going on? When are we starting to vote? They had no answers. And some of them said, in fact, told me, the officials themselves, that we don't have the PIN codes to the machines that are supposed to be used.
How strange is that the electoral officials themselves do not have answers to these questions?
It was very strange, and apparently there's some people I spoke to on condition of anonymity. They told me that actually those people are not the real electoral officials, that those are security organs, who are dressed like electoral officials, who will do the tallying and the counting, and then later called a group you see besides the polling station, who are the actual electoral officials, to come and do the signing. So that's how unfortunate it was, because the very people supposed to provide answers were making calls and then to ask for directions, for guidelines, how to carry out the voting exercise. So it was strange. And in all honesty, Ajoa, I've covered elections for the last 20 years in my media career, but this was one election that's standing out as the most badly organized.
So in these areas where voting start has delayed, is there going to be an extension of the end of voting, or everybody is ending at exactly the time that has been stipulated?
The Electoral Commission chairman, who apparently is a justice of the Supreme Court, was a justice of the Supreme Court, just released a statement, first of all, apologizing for the delays, but he stopped short of saying whether there would be an extension or not. But typical Uganda elections, there are no extensions provided in whenever an election is. I doubt that there will be an extension because the chairman of the Electoral Commission has not hinted on that.
Now, let's talk about the concerns that some of the electoral officials that have been seen or cited at the various polling stations are not exactly electoral officials. Has the commission said anything about disputing these allegations?
These are concerns that most media, international media representatives want to ask the Electoral Commission once it calls for press conference. But as of now, we can't really confirm them and we can't really deny them. We just want that confirmation, like you said, from the Electoral Commission. And we are hoping that a little later today, the Electoral Commission will call for a press conference, to address concerns, including those concerns of officials who seem to be ignorant about what they're supposed to be doing. And clearly, as an outsider, you could see that really there was no training of these people. They lack the training. And besides me, as an outsider who has covered elections, even the ordinary people could clearly see it, that these people are not electoral officials because they're totally ignorant about how the system works, how to check the voter register, etc.
Now, the big elephant in the room is the internet challenges. How is it affecting voting or anything? I have heard the public relations officer for the Electoral Commission say that, look, the machines we have are not reliant on the internet, so nothing is going to go amiss. Voters do not require internet to vote. But really, from your observation, how is the internet challenges affecting this election?
I don't know even where to start from when we talk about the internet challenges. It has affected everyone apart from maybe those in power or the powers that be. I'm talking about the State House and the sensitive areas of security. But it has affected each and everyone's work, including ourselves. Right now, even the bandwidth is really very low, where we have been allowed to use in a small studio. The group of us, we have 5 of us as Deutsche Welle. It is really very, very slow. And it becomes very challenging when you have to upload sounds, videos, content, pictures. It becomes slower. More often, it disconnects more than it connects. And beyond ourselves, outside, of course, the businesses, we talked about this on our different media platforms at DW, whether Facebook or YouTube or TikTok, and even online. But again, to sum it up, it has affected businesses enormously. We're talking about millions of dollars in losses. We're talking about online businesses that can't do transactions, including if I would want to withdraw money from ATM machines. That is going to be challenging, including even mobile money transfers. Some businesses are saying we're not using mobile money transfers because they've been disconnected and we have no option. You're going to have to give us hard cash. We are not accepting anything apart from hard cash. And in a world where everyone is embracing cashless, transactions, in Uganda, it's a different story. And now, when we come to very briefly on the electoral process where they need the internet to upload results, that is what everyone is waiting to see how they're going to pull it off.
Well, so the PRO says they have a system that will facilitate that. So voters should not worry about their system because that is completely sorted out. They do not, the shutdown essentially is not going to affect their operations. That is the assurance he is giving. In terms of the registered voters, 21 million people who are casting their ballots today. We're recording this podcast a little after 12 p.m. East African time. Now, if you look at the number of people who have already cast their ballots and the estimated number of people to cast their ballot, do you think that all these people will turn up to vote today?
I hardly believe that they'll turn up to vote. To begin with, the lines are not, they don't have that wow factor to say there were very long lines. That would be really, really and not true, because there is, first of all, voter apathy. Many of the people that at least I spoke to this morning, asking them why they're not going to vote. I'm talking to people who are already working in supermarkets where I passed by to buy a bottle of water. They're like, no, we don't have to vote because we know the results have already been fixed. So there's no need for us to go to vote. Apart from those who are defiant, who want to make their voice heard just for the sake of it. But I doubt that even we shall see beyond 50% of the total number of voters. In the previous election, which I followed closely and reported on, it was 71% in 1986. As time proceeded in 2021, that percentage fell short of the real number that is supposed to have been like in 1986. So this year around, everyone is waiting to see if really the voter turnout could be closer to at least, let's say, 60% of the 21 registered million voters.
Now, you say that a lot of young people are not interested, but we also do know that young people form at least 70% of the total registered voters. How is that going to affect the validity or the credibility of the election afterwards?
That is a little bit hard to tell, but the young voters they have their particular demands, at least those I spoke to. The credibility of it, of course, will dwell so much on who is there when the tallying begins. You must have special permission, like I do, to follow the process of it. And what happens behind the curtains, it's really hard, Ajoa, for anyone who's not part of what is inside that curtain to know exactly what is going on. And the election observers that I wanted to speak to remain tight-lipped. They said, we have nothing to say. We're here as observers. Maybe until the end of it, we shall talk about issues of credibility. We shall talk about, the irregularities that we saw. But at this stage, we have nothing to say. We're just saying what we see is what you see. Basically, it's like telling you, take it as you see it. That kind of thing.
Yes, but that's a problem, because if people are going into an election, and I'm talking about the perception a lot of Ugandans may have right now, if people are going to an election thinking that the outcome is already decided, then how does that affect Uganda's democracy?
It grossly affects it. And perhaps if I may tell one thing, when it comes to democracy in Africa, those are certain things that the authorities have kind of forgotten, or if they respect them at all. When it comes to credibility of elections here in Uganda, those have been things that have been reported on severally, starting from 1996 till the most previous one of 2021. There have been issues of irregularities. So when we talk about credibility and democracy in Uganda, those are values that are really absent. I was born here in Uganda. I grew up here in Uganda. I went to school in Uganda. I have friends and families here. And we share the same sentiments, even those within the ruling party, who are top honchos or top officials there. We talk about these issues. We say, what do you think about democracy? Let me give an example. This week, the Electoral Commission told observers that don't worry, the internet won't be disconnected. Don't worry, you'll have access to everything that you want. Don't worry, the process will begin as prepared or as we have planned. But all they said was the opposite. And nobody's taking this commission serious anymore when to release their statements. You take them with a pinch of salt, and you have to balance it up with independent, analysts or commentators.
Finally, before I let you go, what do you see, what do you anticipate happening in terms of security? Are we going to likely see a repetition of Tanzania in Uganda?
Well, God forbid, no one wants to see that, happen. When you look at the security deployment around the key installments, even around the streets in all corners, the police and the army, this time I think the people got the message clear. They anticipate violence that will be met with violence. So that's why many of the people stayed away. They're in their houses, and the streets are not really full as they were, are not congested as they were. There's no traffic jam per se. So to sum it up, it's just a waiting game, is all I can say, John.
It's just a waiting game. Thank you so much, Isaac Mugabe, for joining us. We know the internet is disrupting, so you won't have much time. But if you can, just 30 seconds, who decides really who wins this election?
Good question. Good question. I threw that question back to the voters, and they said the president is the one who decides, not the Electoral Commission. That's their answer. That's what they told me, not my answer.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Thank you so much. Keep watch on everything that's happening for us, and we'll definitely update our viewers as time goes on. Thank you so much. That's Isaac Mugabe reporting to us from Uganda.
Abuja, Nairobi, Harare. Africa Links correspondents bring African stories to you.
Let's now hear from some more citizens on what their election day experiences were.
Up to now, it is almost a quarter. It is past a quarter past 8. Nothing is happening.
All that was promised that it will be a swift and flow stuff. It's not swift. It's not flow. It's not flowing. And we think that at the end of the day, all that we expected might not be actually attained.
All the slips first have to pass through the machines. If they don't pass through the machines, The votes aren't allowed, yet the machines are now not working. So we are very down. We don't know what's going on. The internet is not on, so we don't know what to do.
We wanted to vote early because we see a lot of this deployment. We are not sure of our safety. We don't know what's going on. Some of our colleagues are still home. Some of them, they have refused to come because of the heavy deployment.
I don't expect any challenge. We are Ugandans. We have come to vote, and after voting, go back home and go on your TV and see what happens. Whatever they tell us, that's what we shall do.
Uganda's Electoral Commission has up to 48 hours to declare election results. For many, this election is not only a test of the independence of electoral officials, but a test of Uganda's democracy and will shape future elections. Well, before we go, let's hear some final words from Dr. Miriam Matembe, Uganda's first ever Minister of Ethics and Integrity, who is now a strong critic of the same government that appointed her between 1988 to 2003.
Oh my God. Let me tell you the challenge we got. Leadership, the word leadership means about others. We used to have a leadership that was people-driven and service-oriented. People keep saying that, is it between Museveni or Bobby Wine? It's not Museveni, President Museveni and Honorable Kyagulanyi, who are the only leaders in this country. But many of those who could be taking Uganda into a change, they don't want to suffer what is going on. So they are there not participating. I wish President Museveni could organize a dialogue of Ugandans and involve senior citizens in this country who don't lack, who don't want to be bought, who can sit at a table and we say, how are we going to redeem our nation? Because for the last 20 years, the multi-party politics have not worked. Instead, they have led us back to the times of Obote and times of Amin, when people used to disappear. We have gone back to that kind of system.
So what are your expectations in this year's presidential and parliamentary elections? Share them with us on Facebook at DW Africa. Listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Eddie Micah Jr. I am Ajua Tinkrama Domina. Many thanks for listening.
DW, made for minds.